Okay, welcome everyone. We're glad you're here this evening, and we welcome you to our virtual speaker series. Tonight's topic, mental fitness for women, the signs and the symptoms. My name is Linda Wyatt Simpson, and I'm the chair of the Physical and Mental Health Committee of the Trenton Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. We are a public service sorority dedicated to serving our community through service and social action. We hope that this program will give you a better understanding of mental health and some of the resources that can help. The conversation tonight is geared towards staying in shape mentally and knowing how to face the challenges of mental health. We have three professionals that will share their expertise on this topic. As you join in the discussion, please use the chat if you have comments or questions that our panelists may be able to answer later on in the program. As you can see, our panelists and their wonderful pictures are on the screen at this time. Let me introduce them. First, we have Sharonda Richardson. She is a licensed social worker. She works for MindWell Behavioral Health. Sharonda, can you share a little more about what you do?
Yes. Good evening, everyone. So my name is Sharonda Richardson. I am a licensed social worker, currently preparing to take my exam to be a licensed clinical social worker. I am a psychotherapist at MindWell Behavioral Health, and MindWell is located at 1901 North Olden Avenue in Ewing, New Jersey.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Next, we have Janet Haig. She is the executive director of NAMI, Mercer County. NAMI is the National Alliance on Mental Health, which is the largest mental health organization. Janet, can you tell us something about what you do?
So as you noted, I am the executive director at NAMI Mercer, and you can always visit our website to find out about all the wonderful programs and services we make available to the local community. In terms of my own background, I hold a graduate degree in leadership and spirituality and one in clinical psychology. So that may be of some help to me at this evening's conversation, I would think. And we are so excited to be here with all of you because your sorority in particular has been a huge support both to our local affiliate and to NAMI in general. So thank you so much for inviting us. Glad to.
Thank you. And our final presenter is Marcia Kipp Adams. She is a licensed clinical social worker who has her own practice called In Solidarity Counseling Practice. Marcia, can you tell us a little bit about what you do? You have to unmute.
I'm also a psychotherapist. I started my own practice in November of 2023. So I mostly see clients that are seeking help with mental health in an outpatient setting. The lowest level of care, which is usually weekly or biweekly.
Wonderful, wonderful. So as you can see, we have some experts with us. So now you've met our panelists. Let's get started and talk about mental health. So I'm going to pose a few questions. I'm going to call on a few of our presenters to explain their take on it, and we'll start the conversation. So the first question, mental fitness is a relatively newer term for many of us. What is your definition of mental fitness? And I'll start with Sharonda.
Okay, thank you, Linda. So let me just start out by saying we work so hard, or we're supposed to be or should be working so hard with physical fitness, right? So we work so hard with physical fitness, such as exercising or walking or doing things to stay in shape physically. So when I think of mental fitness, I always say mental fitness is about keeping our minds right, right? There's nothing wrong with getting a checkup from the neck up, right? We get checkups from the neck down for all of the parts from the neck down, but we have to also keep in mind checking ourselves, check up from the neck up, because that's so important.
Thank you so much. Marcia, do you have a take on that?
Yeah, this is sort of a new term. I hadn't heard a lot about it, so I appreciate the question, and it gave me an opportunity to. I'm so sorry, but I'm alone with my puppies today. Uh, So for me, it's like having set practices in my daily routine, to have 4 or 5 set practices to help me feel sort of balanced and aware of my mental health. Because if I have too much going on and I'm not taking care of myself, then I might overreact, underreact, and just not be my best self in many areas of my life, my personal, my professional, and social life. So it's really about having that ability to, practice something every day that keeps me um, balanced in how I react. It's like emotional regulation. And so I agree what Sharonda said, that we always put more emphasis on physical and emotional, but how about our spiritual and other areas that we need to pause and reflect and slow down?
Wonderful. Thank you. Okay, Janet, it's your turn.
My turn. So I was thinking a lot about this question, and particularly in light of another question, which I hope I don't sort of steal your thunder on that. But when you talk about the difference between like mental health and mental fitness, it occurs to me that we all have mental health, right? But when you're doing mental fitness are the things that we do proactively to really pursue our own well-being, to make sure that we are actually doing the things that help us to live our best lives and be our best selves. And so that's sort of how I would distinguish it.
Wonderful. So since you brought that up, we'll just go right into that question. Is there a correlation between mental fitness and physical fitness? Sharonda?
Yes. So I always like to say MBS, right? So I want us all to remember that MBS, and that's mind, body, and spirit. So all three things must be in sync at the same time, right? So our mind, think about it. If our mind is racing because we're consumed with so much stuff, which we all are most of the time, well, all of the time, speaking for myself, if our mind is consumed with so much stuff, now it's racing, right? So that is going to affect our body, right? So we're not sleeping right, we're not eating right. Our energy level is off a little bit, right? We're a little cranky because we're not sleeping right, because our mind is racing. And then we have the S, the spiritual part. So I say, okay, so am I connected spiritually? Am I praying the way I should be praying? Am I attending church? Am I connected to my spiritual being? So for me, I always ask myself, if something is off, I have to check my MBS. And that's what I always say to my clients. I'm like, okay, well, what about our MBS? What's off? And more times than not, if one is off, it throws off everything, which in turn throws you off.
Marsha, do you have anything to add to that?
I'd like to say, when we go to the gym or we take that walk, that helps our mind. We leave the gym afterwards going, oh my gosh, I feel so good. We feel clear. Our mind feels clear. The same thing if we take the time to focus on our mental health, on, pausing, on sitting quiet for a few, whether it's prayer or meditation, or just thinking, I keep a gratitude journal, writing, just having some space in our morning or part of our day where we can just check in with ourselves. That's going to make our physical self feel better. We're going to be able to, it goes exactly what she says, it's hand in hand. We can't just say, oh, mental health is physical and emotional. We have to say, well, where is our spirit? How are we addressing, our spiritual self? It all connects. So.
Wonderful.
I did say this earlier, Linda, but one of the reasons I started in Solidarity was to specifically talk to people about their spirituality, and not, it doesn't have to be a religious or a religious experience, but what how are you taking care of your spiritual self? And sometimes it is prayer, sometimes it is a community, a church community, a congregation, a mosque. Sometimes it's just walking in nature or looking out at the stars. We've got to look at all aspects because we can't separate it out.
Wonderful, wonderful. So that leads me a little bit to the next question. What factors contribute to mental health issues in women, particularly? So, Janet, I'm going to let you start this one off.
So I was thinking about this a bit, and what it strikes me that because women bear children, right, which is unique to women, I believe that that really does impact a great deal of our mental well-being because there's the cycles that we go through. There's, what happens if someone is expecting a child, what that does with their hormone levels. When they have that child, then that sudden drop in those levels. So I think just by virtue of being a woman and experiencing what it means to live in our bodies as women, that impacts mental well-being. I also think that women, because of that, tend to be caretakers and, relationship builders, and that's sort of like where our intense focus is. And that being said, I think that also impacts mental health because we will very frequently find ourselves caught up in taking care of everybody else except ourselves. And so I think that really has a huge bearing on mental health and well-being for women.
Wonderful. Marcia, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I mean, I think there are some other questions that you asked similarly. Like Janet says, I think there's different seasons in our lives. So we might be in the beginning season, we might, as women, be raising our kids. We may have spouses and partners to help us. We may not. We may be going to school. We may be working. There's so much expectations on women, and women have to work harder to get further than men do. And then there's a different season. Maybe the kids go to college and then there's an empty nester. That can affect women, I think, sometimes more than men. And then I also take Medicare for I'm in network with Medicare. So I have some women that are going through like the aging process and they're after menopause. Well, they're way after menopause, but that's another stage I forgot to say. Sleep problems and night sweats and all the things that go with a hormone. That's another stage. And then later on in life, you may end up taking care of a parent or your husband or a spouse. It goes both back and forth. And there's just, I feel like women feel guilty when they can't do it all. And the mental fitness goes so much with mental health because all the things that mental fitness tells us that we need to do is very similar to how we take care of our mental health. We need to put ourselves up the sense of priorities. When we have to put our children first or our spouses first or our parents first, we're going to burn out. And we need to put ourselves up first. And lots of times women come in and I have to tell them, well, what are you going to do differently? Where are you going to put yourself first? And it's really hard. They'll say things like, I'll just feel guilty or I'll feel bad. And so a lot of that contributes. And then there's also other things like sometimes women have more trauma or more experiences in their past of, abuse, domestic violence that you don't see as many men come in and talk about.
Wonderful. So I'll ask this question as well. Do you find in your profession, and this, I want all three of you to think about this, that people do not seek support or want to come and see you because of cultural beliefs? Does that come into your office? We know that certain cultures don't believe in, telling their history or telling their family business. I know growing up, the rule was what happens in the house stays in the house. So how does that affect some of the people that you guys see? And any of you can start it off.
We're like, okay, who's gonna start? I think, how am I gonna start that? I don't see that. I see a young woman that's 18 and she's Muslim. She comes from a strict Muslim family, and she's 18 or 19. And I think there's so much emphasis nowadays on mental health. So that's saying, Linda, and I'm familiar with it too, what goes on in this house stays in this house. I don't think that's applying to this generation that I'm seeing with my clients. We all know they're different. They have a voice, the kids now. So I see 18, 18 and up, nothing under 18. But the kids that I'm seeing, they're from all backgrounds and they come into sessions and they're talking, which is really good. So I'm excited for that.
Wonderful. That is a change.
It is.
Yeah,
Yes.
Janet, do you notice certain cultures not coming into your practices or into your office for help?
So, I mean, I do think that we've seen some of that, certainly that extends, but I think that what you said about the younger people, I think that really is a shift for sure. But we have, we're covering the lifespan and we have a lot of like people that are middle-aged and older, adults as well. And I do think that you see some of that there, or even some of the parents' discomfort with the young person who is talking about the mental health, like they're more uncomfortable than the younger person themselves. So that was a really interesting thought and reflection on that. But we definitely do see some of that still prevalent, but not so much, I think, with the younger people. I think
Okay.
it's older.
So leading to that, Marcia, your clientele, are they more women than men? It's been said that women seek more help than men do.
Um, Men ebb and flow. I usually carry anywhere from 30 to 35 on my caseload, and I'd say around 30 are women, and then I have one or two that are men, or I might get a young kids, that teen boys from time to time. I've only had one case very recently where it was a Hispanic woman who came in for 3 sessions, but she did not want anybody in her family to know about it, and I felt like there was a lot of shame and embarrassment to talking about her mental health. I mean, I'm not sure what she gained from coming 3 times, but that was all she would give it. And I find sometimes people will come in, it doesn't really matter. They'll say that they say it doesn't always matter what cultural background it is. They'll just say, oh, my mom, didn't believe in medication, or she wouldn't bring me to therapy. And a lot of people went to therapy when they were older, when their parents weren't involved in it. So I just wanted to say this because it leads into some of the stuff that NAMI addresses, is that there still is stigma around mental health, even though it is absolutely biological. I wouldn't tell anybody a whole lot different what to do for their mental health than I would tell them if they had a heart disease or they had cancer. It's all like wellness and balance and taking time for yourself. And, it's really very similar.
Okay, thank you so much. So, big question. I know you've touched on it a little bit, but what are some of the ways women can strengthen or improve their mental health? We know that they do a lot. We know that. But when they come to you, are there certain supports or ideas that you give them that they can do, at home or, to try to make themselves better for their mental health? We want to make sure they're strong, just like physically, we want to make sure they're mentally strong. So, uh, Janet, I see you thinking hard. Do you have an answer to that one?
Well, the one thing I was thinking about recently, a good friend called me and had asked me to do something with her that was sort of out of the ordinary. We're doing a little cross-country adventure to get a van driven from Phoenix back here. And she said to me on that call, this is 30 years of friendship, thank you for being my friend. And I thought to myself, one of the really important things I think for women in terms of preserving and maintaining good mental health is know your girlfriends, right? Like, and make sure that you surround yourself with them and that you have good girlfriends that you can trust and spend time with and share things with, because we women and men are very different in terms of how we navigate the world and how we talk about things and share what's going on in our lives. And so I think having that network of good girlfriends is really important.
Great. Sharonda, do you have anything to add to that?
So, Janet, I definitely agree with you. The friend, and it's funny, I was writing in my journal as I was sitting here waiting and preparing for this event. And I wrote, I'm thankful for my girlfriends. And I wrote that several times because I'm here on vacation in Dominican Republic and something was going on and my girlfriends jumped in and I felt good about that. But I also wrote down here, I said, you know, your friends are not your therapist.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to not allow, even though I'm a therapist, I don't want to wear this therapist hat 24/7, right? I'm a therapist, that's my job, right? I love what I do. However, I would like to take it off sometimes and just be a girlfriend, and I can. So I say that to say, when you ask the question, what are some ways women can strengthen and improve their mental health? Get a therapist, right? Therapy, right? That way you're not downloading constantly on your friends, and your friends get to enjoy you, not your situation, not the issues that you're having, right? Something else I wrote, exercise, very important, right? Exercise, we say, releases the happy hormones, and we need those. The month of January, I realized, oh, my mood is completely off. And I'm a walker, so I walk 6 to 7 miles. But of course, January, it's freezing. I'm not going out freezing cold, but my mental health suffered as a result of that. So now the weather is better and I'm able to walk. And I was like, wow, that's what it was, right? And also journaling. Journaling is very important, right? So we can use journaling to reduce stress by writing down your thoughts and feelings, can help you release pent up emotions and lower stress levels, right? So I would definitely say journaling, exercise, and therapy are definitely ways to improve your mental health. First and
Wonderful.
foremost, therapy.
Okay. Marsha, you have anything to add?
I'm going to add boundaries because everything that Janet and Sharonda said is, I would talk about as well. But learning how to say no, learning how to say, thank you for asking me, let me get back to you. Putting more pause in your life. You don't have to fix everything and do everything. And yeah, people around you might not like it that you say no, but you got to say no sometimes. You got to say yes for yourself. You have to move yourself up the list of priorities. And that's what I think, depending on what season of life you're living in, I think that's what's the most challenging. Because in any family system, when you start doing something different to help yourself, other people don't always like that. They want to have that temperature where it was before at 68 degrees. And when it gets hotter or gets colder in the room, everybody wants it back. And so that's something that I would encourage people to say. It's okay to say no. It's okay to say, thank you, I'll get back to you. It's okay to say, hell no, I can't. But just figuring out different ways to say no and not to be guilty or feel bad about it. That's how you take care of your mental health. That's how you stay fit.
Excellent. I love this. You've given a lot of ideas for our audience. How can family members help support women who are experiencing mental health challenges? So, for example, we know that sometimes mental health is hereditary. It sometimes gets passed on. May not be the same extreme that it, got passed on with, but there may be some tendencies there. So, in that light, and I'm sure you've had a client or two that, that may have come across, but how can the family really support someone in their family that has a mental illness problem?
I'd like Janet to start off because I think has a great support system for families. And then Sharonda and I can kind of fill in any.
So I think one of the, so at NAMI, we often get people calling on the helpline and it's a family member and they're so frustrated and so concerned about what's going on with their loved one in terms of their own mental health and mental illness. And it's interesting because when you have adults, adult children or whatever, or brother, sister, sibling, colleague, whatever it might be, you can't make that person do certain things, right? And so one of the things that I always think is like when we hit that point where we feel like we're saying to someone, to a family member, like you can't really make this person take their medication or do what it is that you want them to do to take care of themselves, etc. What we can say to that family is, what can you do to find the kind of support that you need for yourself? So in a way, one of the really important things that I think families can do to help their loved ones with their mental health is to make sure they're taking care of themselves and that they they set realistic expectations about what they can and can't do and what the loved one maybe will and won't do. And then we have like family support groups that people can come to so that they can actually be talking with other people who get where they're coming from because they understand from their own lived experience what it's like to deal with that situation within a family. So, and I really think one of the key things is recognizing that you want to be an ally to this person. Like you have to, it's about the relationship, it's about the love that you have for this individual and being able to contextualize everything that you're doing in that context, I think is just really important.
Great. Marcia, have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I think I had three things on my list. Give, like, if I was a family member, I'd give them some space to have time to themselves and support that. I would encourage them to have the girlfriends and the community that they need that might be separate from, the family members, to have a hobby or something, to go out and do something that's new and exciting and can bring some life to being tired or stressed and just kind of support them in any decision. The other thing I wanted to tag on with Janet is that I think like knowledge is power when it comes to anything, and especially mental health. People don't understand it. Some people are scared of it. I've heard multiple stories of psychiatrists who have even pushed themselves away from a patient who's suffering from mental illness. So we just have to realize like this is biological. This is the way the brain's wired. This is genetically predisposed and environmental stuff that we can't always fix the genetic piece, but we can fix the environment piece. And we just need, I'll bring people in and have family members come in and help them understand what's going on if they're depressed, what's going on if they're anxious. Because some people think, oh, just snap out of it. They don't understand what's going on. And I think that's the most important thing is to educate them. And that's what NAMI does.
And that's why we're here. Thank you so much. Sharon, do you have anything to add?
Yes, so I am going to go back a little bit and then come back to that. What contributes most to women who experience mental health issues? And I have stress. That's the only thing I put next to that. Stress, right? Stress. And then so when I answer that question, how can family members help support women who are experiencing mental health challenges? So I think the first thing is have the conversation with the person. Hey, so what can I do to help? Right? And oftentimes if the person is stressed out, so stress is saying that, hey, the body is saying, we're doing too much, right? So it's red lights flashing. Wait, we're doing too much. And that's everything that you have on your plate. So as that family member is saying, well, what can I do to help? The next question is, hey, I see that you are stressed. Let's write some things down. And what can I take off your plate? Right? To help. It may be something as simple as making a meal for them on Sunday that they can have for a couple of days. So in the morning, getting ready for work, they don't have to worry about lunch or whatever, just something so small. So I think it starts with having a conversation or just asking that question, what can I do to help? Now, if they say, nothing, get away from me, leave me alone, then that's to Marsha's point, giving them that space, but also letting them know I'm here when you're ready, right? So when you're ready and you have one dime and one phone call, you know I'm the person that you can call and I will be there. So it starts with having the conversation. What can I do to help and what can I take off your plate?
Wonderful. So with the conversation that we've had with the ideas to help improve, and we want our minds to be fit, are there any other things that come to mind that, particularly for women, that we can do to help each other? So, for example, we have our girlfriends, and that's our support group. But sometimes our girlfriends are experiencing some things, and they may or may not be able to share that with you because we're girlfriends. And we, like you said before, we don't want to burden our girlfriends with our problems and stuff all the time. So, how do we help each other recognize these issues that we may be experiencing? Um, Sometimes having the conversation, yes, but are we really having a conversation because that's our girlfriend, and we put up fronts for each other so often that the real truth may not come out. So how do we make our circle healthy mentally? Any
I
thoughts on
like
that?
I like this idea of if you were talking to your girlfriends all the time about your mental health or all the things, I think suggesting to get a therapist is a great idea. I mean, I don't mind, and most of my cousins, friends, family are always mindful that I'm a therapist and they don't want to tell me all the things. But I think if I, like Sharonda said, I think if I felt like people were kind of calling me up and using me as a therapist, I would suggest that they get one, and that would be a great way to support somebody.
Okay. We're going to get therapists. How's that?
Therapy.
Want to make sure, but we're okay.
We have two of them here that can help us out.
There you go.
I was
So I
there.
have a question, particularly for Janet, because you are part of NAMI. Can you talk a little bit about NAMI and the kinds of services that are offered?
Sure. So NAMI is very much a grassroots organization, right? And our leadership model is based on lived experience. So it's really important to say that because we're really not a provider of clinical services. So, for example, we have support groups, but those support groups are not they're not clinician led, they're peer led, which is to say it's about like if there's a support group for people that are dealing with depression, for example, we have one of those called the Empathy Network. And the goal of that group is people who themselves have been on that journey, dealt with depression, are the people who are facilitating that group conversation. So it changes like the dynamic in the exchange because it's very much peers supporting peers, right? It's people who get it from their own kind of like they're walking the walk and talking the talk, right? So that's very much the way in which our support groups are organized. The same thing is true of the family support groups. Even our classes where we're educating family members about, caring for a loved one who's dealing with a mental illness, the leaders of those classes are themselves family members who have been through that process. And so we offer peer level support groups or peer led support groups. We offer educational programs for the community, things like this, or presentations that are being made. Just last night, we had the man who is our board president talked about, beyond group homes and talked with family members about how do you plan forward, for what's going to happen to your loved one when you're no longer around. And it's housing and it's like, how do you take care of them financially? And how do you make sure that they're going to be okay when you're not there? And so we do educational programs for the community. And then we also do a lot of advocacy and outreach efforts. So we attend a lot of like wellness fairs or events that are going on in the community to kind of spread the word. And we're looking at doing that not just to promote what NAMI's Mercer's programs and services are, but also to provide valuable content to the community. So for example, we have an entire library of toolkits, which are on all kinds of different topics. And they're very simple, but they're attractive, and they're like tips and tools for how do you deal with X. They're on our website. You're able to access them under the Learn More tab on the toolkits page. And then, as I said, we have a helpline that provides like you can call in and you can get assistance for finding like a psychiatrist who accepts Medicare, or help navigating how to figure out where to find, support using your insurance to pay for it. Like where do you go to begin? Like people don't even sometimes know what to do about that. Or like how do I find an attorney who will help me obtain guardianship? Or how do I find an attorney who will help my son who's in the county jail because he's been diagnosed with schizophrenia, but he was picked up for, all kinds of illegal stuff that was going on because he was not, really grounded and stable. So the helpline points people in the direction of services and things that they might need. We're not therapists, we're not case managers. We also do provide an extra layer of navigation support through our Helpline Plus program. And then we advocate, both at the level of like, passing policies and that, nationally, statewide, but we also work with local officials to address the mental health needs of the local community, doing a local mental health needs assessment, et cetera. So those are kind of like the areas we're in. I always like to say we're a macro level mental health organization. So we're really we're like at that higher level bird's eye view of what's going on and kind of operating at that level. So.
Wonderful. So, Marsha, I'm gonna also give you a chance to tell a little bit about your business.
Okay. So I'm located in Presbyterian Church of Lawrenceville. We're starting a new initiative that's a 501c3 called the Community Well, where we're going to have a lot of different people that rent space at the church that provide services for the community. I'm also ordained Presbyterian minister, and I did a MSW. So I wanted to wed the two things that I feel the most comfortable talking about, which is our spirituality, where God fits in, our purpose in life. I mean, one of the things that many times people come into treatment is they lost their sense of purpose or feel any joy. And so I love to wed those two together. I don't know what else to say about it other than just trying to address in a holistic approach how to be with somebody on their journey, whether they just want to, have more fitness with their mental health awareness, or whether they actually have had, history of mental health for many years. People go in and out of therapy. They want a new, fresh approach. They might be fine, and then they're not. And so I'm just there sort of an outpatient basis. And so I don't know if I answered or said too
You
much.
did, you did. What we're trying to do here is give people resources so that if they need help, you guys are there. So,
Yeah.
Sharonda, can you add to that?
Yeah, so I stated earlier that I am a psychotherapist at Mind World Behavioral Health. Mind World is again located at 1901 North Olden Avenue in Ewing. Telephone number 609-237-7100. You can always call the office and ask to be put on my schedule. And we'll take it from there. But I definitely encourage, I don't want to say everyone, because that's like everybody in the whole world, to definitely seek therapy. Even if you feel like you don't have anything to talk about, once we start talking, you will say to yourself, wow, this is something that I should have did a long time ago, because we all have stuff, right? And I always like to say we all have bricks that we carry as infants to children, young adults, and we carry those bricks with us over the years, right? And if the bricks are never taken off of us, what happens when you keep piling all of these bricks onto a foundation? It cracks, right? Or it falls. So my job as the psychotherapist is to help remove some of those bricks. You don't even know or realize what bricks that you've been carrying because you've been carrying them for so long, it feels normal. So you've been working or functioning in this normal space, but that normal space is heavy, right? Because you have these bricks that are trauma from childhood. Anything can be considered trauma from childhood. And we kind of sweep it under the rug because years and years ago, certain things were normalized, right? So now you're carrying this brick and it's heavy. So I feel like that's something that I like to unpack with my clients, is to help them remove some of those bricks, and so that they can feel lighter. And I always say at the end of the session, do you feel better than when you first came in? And most of the time, it's yes.
Good. Good. That means you're reaching them. That's wonderful.
Yes. Yes.
So, ladies, we thank you so much for your input. We do have a few questions in the chat, so I'm going to ask Selena take care of those.
Sorry. Yes. There's a question for Sharonda. Sharonda talked about it was a little bit, but more specifically on how do you navigate your mental health in the colder months? What are some things someone can do?
Vacation in Florida from November. That's my plan. Vacation in Florida from November to maybe March. But no, I would say definitely maybe join a gym so that way you can work out inside, right? And move a little bit. Or you can go to the mall and do mall walks, right? Saturday morning or Sunday morning with the older people. But that's an option. Or journaling, or just being mindful. Like I said, your MBS, right? So remember I said in the beginning, remember that MBS, right? Constantly checking in with your MBS, mind, body, and spirit. Because again, when one is thrown off, when one is off, it throws off the other two as well. And it's all three of them that makes up the whole person, right? So things you can do is recognize when, something is a little off, right? So once we know what the problem is, then we can kind of target that specific area. But in the winter months, I would definitely suggest find a way to keep moving. Gym, mall may means shopping a little more, but then you don't want to do that because then that's going to create more stress. So don't do that. But walking more, definitely some type of physical exercise, roller skating, something.
Okay. The next question is, what is the impact of grief and loss on your mental health?
Ooh.
Well, I think that's for the panel. It wasn't just for you.
Okay. No, I was. Ooh.
Oh, okay.
Well, I think, honestly, I think everybody that comes into counseling is talking about grief. I think there's a lot of losses. If we did a timeline and went through it, we would realize that, there's just a lot of loss. I mean, we might have lost somebody in our life. We might have lost a job. We might have lost, a spouse, a child. If you look under the layers, you'll realize that there's grief there. And some people come in because they lost somebody significant and they need to process that, and they're depressed and they're sad, and it's all one big sort of ball of stuff. They used to have a specific time when we have to use diagnosis codes, and if we're using insurance companies in order for the insurance to pay. And it used to be back in the day that you couldn't even say they were depressed if they had a grief. But I think there's grief everywhere, and it impacts all of our lives. And that's what we're talking about when we come into counseling.
And that goes back to those bricks that I mentioned, right? So you're younger, an uncle pass away, right? And then an aunt, a cousin, parents get divorced, grandparents that you were so close to, they pass away. And as you get older, let's face it, more and more people are going to pass away, but you never talk to anybody about it, a therapist, because remember back then that wasn't a thing. So you never talked. So now you're carrying what? Those bricks, right? And now you get married, let's say, now you're going through a divorce. So that's another heavy brick on top of all of the other bricks that were never addressed, right? So it's an ongoing thing. So again, you have two therapists on the panel, and we're saying it over and over again, therapy to unpack and help remove some of those bricks, because it's heavy. It's heavy. It's heavy. It's heavy. It's so heavy. And I can only imagine a person that experienced so much loss during a lifetime, and now they are a certain age, and it's just so heavy. So therapy can definitely help unpack that and also remove some of those bricks.
Then another question appeared when Janet, when you were talking, someone wants to know, how do you fund the programs, or who funds your programs?
Okay. So that's a really good question, because actually everything that NAMI Mercer offers to the community is offered at no charge, because we don't want cost to be a barrier to participation. So that being said, we rely entirely on philanthropic giving. So it's individual donations, it's foundation grants, it's corporate sponsorships, it's revenue that we raise through our fundraising activities. Our walk is coming up in May, and actually your sorority very often has fielded a team and come out and done some, peer fundraising and supported the walk. That's a huge one. And we also have a modest contract with the Mercer County Division of Mental Health and Addiction Services. So that's really where all the money comes from. So every year it's a whole new plan as to, like, here's hoping, right? Like, the prior funders are going to fund us again, and that, the gala event and the walk are going to raise the money that we need, etc. But we are very blessed and fortunate to have a lot of good support from the community. And in turn, we try to be there and provide those goods and services that people need to help their mental health, so that they're willing to lend us that support, knowing that, they're paying it forward to the next person, the next family, whoever might need that assistance. So that's it. That's how we fund it.
Okay. The next question is, with the current state of the world, what are some suggestions you may have to help navigate the heaviness of today?
I want to say about that, I'm just going to jump right in there, because one of the things that I've done for my own mental health is I said, you know what? I cannot sit and have the TV on a whole lot and listen to a whole lot of news programs and pundits talking about what's going on. But I don't want to be uninformed. I don't want to not know things. So I've resorted to the old-fashioned, I'm going to read things and read headlines, right? And know what's happening without being inundated with all of it and everybody's opinions and reflections on it, etc. So that has been extremely helpful, I know, to me, because otherwise I think I would be losing my mind right now. So let me just say that.
Okay, the next question is, how can we encourage someone to seek help if we're concerned about their mental health and wellness practices, like self-care is not efficient?
I think that's a good question, because oftentimes we all know someone that can definitely benefit from therapy, but how? How can I make this person call? How can I make this person go? I think the key word in that question is encourage. Yeah. That's what you can do, because you can't pull them by the ponytail to therapy. You can't do that. So the only thing you can do is encourage them And it's almost like when they're ready, they will do it. They can't do it for the family. They have to do it because they want to do it. So that word encourage, what you can do is give them the resources. Hey, I know this great therapist. Her name is Sharonda Richardson. She works at Mindwell, right? Or Marcia, right? Give them the resources. And that's actually how I have my clients. I have a couple of sisters. I was seeing one sister and now I'm seeing the other sister. I was seeing mom and two daughters, right? Because it's just about giving them the resources. When a person is in a space, they don't have the energy to search psychology today. It's very overwhelming. So if you provide them with 2 names or 3 names to say, here, give this person a call, right? I know this person, or, you know, I've been introduced to this person. That should definitely help by providing them with the resources, because that takes away of the daunting task of trying to find one.
What are some suggestions on how to calm someone who is in the midst of a panic attack?
I think reminding them to breathe is really important, like being next to a person and doing the very simple things of helping them to ground themselves. So reminding, just take a deep breath. I'm here next to you, like providing that kind of calming, grounding present, like what do you see? Look here. Like it's about just helping a person get grounded and breathe.
It's a little tricky too to answer that because everybody has different types of panic attacks. So sometimes people feel like they can't breathe or they're choking. Um, but what Janet said about grounding, I mean, a couple things right off the bat, or one real simple one for everybody to know is called 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Mm-hmm.
So you just use your senses, and it's really helpful if you can be outside. But 5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear, 3 things you can smell, 2 things taste. You go down, it doesn't matter which ones you do, but it helps you be in the moment. And another one we teach kids is like color labeling. Just sit in the moment and just start finding everything you can see that's green, everything that's blue, everything that's red, just trying to ground yourself. Deep breathing is excellent. I have on my business card like 6 things, I guess, to practice self-care, and square breathing, if they can breathe, is really helpful because you're resetting your automatic nervous system. A lot of this mental health fitness is about our automatic thoughts and our automatic nervous system. And we need to learn the skills that are taught in therapy to do the calming, to be able to get in there and not automatically react or say the same things or think the same things that we've been doing. It's not working. So those are some tools to really help. But I think just making sure that you're with them, drink water. I mean, those kinds of simple things.
And don't panic when the panic person is panicking.
Yeah, it's so funny, but this is the other way around. But my hairdresser told me about her panic attack the other day. Usually I tell her my problem. And she was saying that she had a panic attack, came out of nowhere, hadn't had one in 15 years. And her husband was, trying to fix it for her. And she just started screaming and told him to leave her alone. That it would go away. So it's just so hard to know, other than to try to what Sharonda and Janet said, not get in the crisis with them, but to be that calming present and be that kind of executive functioning when it's not there.
Okay, the next question. Do you ever suggest that a person seeks someone else for medication? And what does research say about light therapy?
About light therapy?
Light therapy.
Light therapy.
Or Light, light. There, I know what you mean. Yeah. That was really popular maybe 30 years ago. I think there's still lights that you can get, especially in the winter when you have that seasonal affective disorder. I don't know all the research about it, but I know that you can find it if you need it. What was the first part of the question? I'm so sorry, Shalina.
Do you ever suggest that a person seek someone else for medication?
And I'll just jump in here while I'm already talking. I absolutely do if I think it's warranted, and I pretty much know in the assessment if it's something I think is going to be needed. I actually already approach them, and if it's a kid, the family, what their thoughts are on it. Just because I kind of know, because I worked in a hospital before I ever worked in outpatient. So I absolutely do if I think it's warranted. And I usually have 2 to 4 different people I can refer them to, and I would take a session. What Sharonda was saying about finding a therapist, it's even harder to find a psychiatrist or a nurse practitioner. So I go through them with it in a session if they're interested. I don't force it at all.
I think it's really important for people to realize that there has to be the right connection between a person and their mental health provider, whether that's a psychiatrist, somebody that's going to provide meds, or a psychotherapist or a counselor or whomever. And I always tell people, you don't want to give up too early and say that it's not working. But you know what? If you've gone to someone for a number of sessions, like 3 sessions, 4 sessions, and you're not feeling it and it's not working, you need to find somebody else because everybody's different and there's going to be a different connection, a different level of being able to actually, find someone who can show you the way or companion you on the path or however you want to call it. So I think it is really important that people don't feel like because you sign on with somebody, you need to stay with that person, even if it's not working, because it might not be working and you need to try somebody else. So I just think that's really important.
It's like, oh,
Yeah, I just
like-
wanted to say, like, especially with kids, I love kids, but they'll look at me and think I'm too old. I always tell them in front of their parents, if you don't feel comfortable here after we start, please let me know. Please let your parents know because we can find another therapist. I want somebody that you feel comfortable with. Because kids might not say, you know what I mean? They might be afraid that they can't have their own voice about that.
Okay, Shalina, if you could take that last question from Nikhil.
Okay. The last question is, although there are resources that are readily accessible for what
Not that one, the one ahead of it.
which one?
You don't see it?
No, I don't see it.
Okay, let me ask it. She's asking, she's having a hard time with her father's passing, and her anger may be displaced. How does she deal with that? And I pulled that out because I thought that it sounds like she needs an answer tonight, or at least a referral tonight. So who would like to, or all of you can talk about that?
so therapy. That's it. Because that goes back to exactly what I was talking about earlier about those bricks, right? So dad passed recently, right? We don't know when he passed, but dad passed recently. However, this was not the first loss, right? I'm sure throughout her years here on this earth, other people passed away also. But now this is that brick that's on top of the other bricks. And now it's really, really, really heavy. The only way to move through those 5 stages of grief is therapy. Not our girlfriends, not our hairdresser, right? Not result into other ways to cope with the grief, right? It's therapy. That's the only way. So what I would suggest or recommend is for her to reach out to someone. She has the resources are here right in front of her right now tonight, so that when tomorrow comes, she can be on the phone with someone so that she can schedule an appointment. Because if she put that question out there, it's heavy. It's heavy for her right now at this moment, and she needs therapy.
So Nikel, we'll make sure that we have some numbers. If Janet, if you can put Nami's number in the chat, and Sharonda and Marcia, if you guys can put your information in the chat, that would be helpful. But at this time, I just want to, we could talk about this all night. You have given us so much information. This is just a conversation that has to keep going because we never know who needs to be mentally fit as well as ourselves.
Yes.
I know I've learned quite a bit from this session. I just want to thank all of you for being here with us tonight to bring the information about mental health. We hope that those of you in the audience have gained some knowledge and understand how important your mental health and self-care is. So we hope to continue to bring these kinds of sessions to you. We're going to put in the chat a short evaluation, if you don't mind working on that for a minute or two. We will drop that in the chat because like I said, we want to bring more of these kinds of sessions to you if that's what the community needs. We do have another session coming up next month that will be focusing on maternal health. So we'll hope you join us for that as well. So if you could take a minute or two and work on that evaluation, we would be very happy for you to do that. And even if you just click the link and hold on to it until we're finished and then go ahead and do it, if you have to go, that's fine, but we will stay on for a few more minutes so that you can do that. In the meantime, I would like to bring on our first vice president from Trenton Alumni Chapter to give us a few words in closing.
Thank you so much, Sora Linda. And I would just like to begin by saying if everybody can just use their reactions for the hand claps. Sharonda, Janet, and Marsha, you guys were phenomenal. You were absolutely phenomenal. The information that you shared really resonated with, I'm sure, everyone on the call. And it was just very uplifting. And when I say that, I mean it because we are living in some very interesting times right now. And so many times people turn away from therapy when it's what they should be turning to. And I just really appreciated the fact that you gave examples and scenarios and information that could really help us. And so thank you, thank you, thank you. And on behalf of our chapter president, Reverend Dr. Morella Holmes, I would like to say we appreciate you for taking the time out of your schedule. And Sharonda, we are really grateful to you for stopping in from DR. We really appreciate that. And as Linda said, this is very poignant in the facts that we are living in, again, difficult times. And if we can make certain that we are mentally fit at all times, then we really will be doing ourselves a good service and not a disservice, because not only should you be open to therapy, but there will be events in your life where you would need to tap into a therapeutic process. And while it might not be long, but it is important that you definitely address it. And so again, we would like to say thank you very much for being here tonight, sharing with us. We had a really nice crowd. I'm certain people got a lot of pearls and nuggets that they can take with them. And please keep us in mind in the future when we would definitely come back to this topic, because as you can see, there was still a lot of questions that were coming in even after we closed down the session for questions. And so again, we appreciate you. On behalf of Trenton Alumni Chapter, we just want to say thank you for being here.
And sorry, Donnie, I'm sorry. If anyone wants to save the chat, if you go and click on chat, at the top right, there are three buttons, and if you click on that, the top selection is Save Chat, so that you can keep the get the phone numbers and that type of thing. So I just wanted to let you know. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sora Regina. And again, thank you so much for coming out tonight and just being here and sharing with us and giving us some pearls of wisdom and information that we can grow with. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we'll stay on while you do the evaluation. A few more minutes. Thank
And
you
I'm
so
going
much.
and I'm going to stop the Facebook live stream.
Yes, thank you.